This is Behind the Mic with Kirkus Reviews, where the subjects are audiobooks and the actors who narrate them. I'm Jo Reed, and I'm so happy to welcome a young readers editor at Kirkus, Laura Simeon. Laura, welcome. It's your first time on the podcast.
Thank you, Jo. I'm really excited to be here after listening to the podcast to actually get to be a guest.
And I'm very excited to talk to you about books for young readers because I happen to love them.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
So what ones are we talking about, and what particular group of young readers are you looking at today?
So I have 3 middle grade books. I've got Alice with a Y by Anna James, read by Kristin Atherton. Confessions from the Group Chat by Jodi Meadows, read by Eevin Hartsough. And Relic Hamilton, Genie Hunter by Joseph Coelho, read by the author.
Middle grade books. So what ages are we talking about here?
So middle grade in general, it spans roughly the ages 8 to 14 group, which, that's a huge range developmentally speaking,
Yeah, sure.
from third grade to up to really freshmen in high school. But what I had in mind with this book, so I used to be a school librarian, and probably the most common question I got from parents was help either getting their kids to read more or getting their kids to branch out and read different books instead of getting stuck in the same things. So I would suggest audiobooks because it's great. You're driving in the car to soccer practice, you pop in an audiobook, they're a captive audience. They're playing, they're drawing, whatever. You can just have an audiobook going in the background. They're terrific because generally speaking, kids' listening comprehension, it often outpaces what they can read on their own. So you can have a younger child listening to and enjoying a book. And as you said, as a grown-up, you can enjoy them too. You're never too old for kids' books. They'll get hooked. They'll say, oh, wow, I didn't think I'd like this based on the cover or whatever, but wow, this is great. And then they'll want to read independently, especially if it's a series, it can get them hooked, or they'll say, oh, okay, I want to keep going after we get out of the car. Let me get this book. And it's also a really nice way, parents are busy, but this is a way to see, what are your kids reading? Let's talk about this together. And with these books, what particularly they had in common was I thought that they work very well across this broad age range. My middle school students would say, oh, I want something to read and talk about with my parents, but like no kissing.
Well, let's begin. Alice with the Y by Anna James, and it's read by Kristin Atherton. And I am such a fan of Kristin Atherton, so I was thrilled to see this.
Yes, and she does such a good job. And this is a book, it's set in 1919 in England, and it has as the protagonist, the granddaughter of Alice from Lewis Carroll's classic. And this Alice grew up hearing her grandmother's stories, but she didn't believe them. They just sound like these fantastical made-up tales. But one day she falls into a pond and she meets the Wonderland characters, and off she goes.
And off she goes. And what an adventure. I listened into all 3 of these books, and I had so much fun with this. Chapter 1 gives us such a concise backstory in the most charming way, the way it's written and the way it's narrated. I cannot say enough about Kristin Atherton in this, or the way Anna James really approaches this.
Yes, I feel like it's such a perfect marriage of narrator and book because it's so whimsical, and even just the chapter titles, when you scan them, you hear, look elsewhere for a moral, please take a ticket and someone will be with you shortly. Everything you need to know, now it is finished. And for those who don't know Atherton, she's an English actor from Sheffield in the north of England, and she switches very subtly. She does all the different accents, ages, genders. It's not overdone and distracting. Sometimes you find yourself noticing the performance with other audiobooks. But this one, she really maintains the emphasis on the story, but brings the characterization through the voices in this just really masterful way.
I agree. She is actually also the new narrator for the Outlander books.
Oh.
And she's actually playing Jamie's sister in season 7.
Oh my goodness.
And she's also narrated a series that I loved, Pat Barker's Women of Troy series.
Okay, I'm not familiar. I'll have to look those up.
Which is different from Alice with the Y. It's night and day, and she's just brilliant in that too. So tell us a little bit more about this book.
Well, so this book is a fun, play on the original Alice in Wonderland. Basically, there's an hour missing. This Alice, her name is spelled with a Y. So there's this great pun, ALYCE, and then, of course, the question why. And so here's our Alice. She's helping negotiate between the Sun King and the Queen of the Moon. And she's off in search of the time being, capital T, capital B. And I feel like this sort of wordplay, the complexity, the slightly old fashioned language is one of the things that makes this book work so well, because it's accessible in the narration for younger readers. It can stretch them, their vocabulary, their understanding of language, and older readers can really delight, like fully understand it. And it reminds me of how, when my own daughter was young, there was this classic from 1872, The Princess and the Goblin by George MacDonald, the Scottish author. And it's been narrated by, I think there's at least a dozen different audio versions. I can't remember which one we listened to, but it was one of those books that would be too difficult, for her at the time to pick up and read herself, but taking it in, she was able to on audio, like really truly appreciate it. And so, here's our Alice, and, she meets the dormouse, the hatter, the hare, and she's going off on these fantastical adventures. And there's morals, but it's not like hit you over the head. It kind of introduces ideas, and readers of different ages and different, developmental levels can take away for themselves what they think the meaning of the story is.
It blends playful nonsense with really thoughtful reflections about curiosity, about logic, and about asking why.
And I think it will lead readers who don't know the original Alice in Wonderland to want to explore that classic.
Why don't we listen to a little bit, set this up for us?
This is the very beginning of the story, it sets the tone so well.
This is Alice with the Y. It's written by Anna James, and it's narrated by Kristin Atherton.
Alice and Alice looked at each other from either end of the room and had nothing to say that would reach across the empty library. And if you're confused by their names already, then you may as well stop now before we've even got started properly. For Alice is Alice's grandmother, and Alice is Alice's granddaughter. I'm not sure how much plainer I can make it. 10 minutes ago, Specular House had been full of the noise of Alice's mother gathering up her bags, telling Alice to be good for her grandmother, and the cries of her baby brother, telling her nothing useful. 6 months ago, the house had been full of recovering soldiers and nurses, who were variously frazzled, or laughing, or sad, or annoyed, her grandmother at their helm. The soldiers used to call her Bunny as she scurried between their beds with her white apron and cap and pocket watch. "Oh, my ears and whiskers," Alice used to say if something went wrong.
This is from that famous chapter one that I love so much. And I also love the actual sound of Atherton's voice. I mean, aside from her excellent pacing and characterization, I just love her voice.
Yes. And I'm one of those people, I will often choose a book by its narrator.
Oh, I will, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not a great narrator, then I'll read it. But for sure, listening to a not good narrator is death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Oh yes.
Well, let's move to your second book, Confessions from the Group Chat by Jodi Meadows, and it's read by Eevin Hartsough. Give us the thumbnail sketch of this.
Yes. So this book, and a lot of people know Jodi Meadows for her YA, but here she's doing realistic middle grade. And this book is about a middle schooler named Virginia, and she's sort of on the periphery of the popular in crowd. And she desperately wants to be accepted, which gets her into trouble because she says some mean things about her classmates in this group chat. And the ringleader, Mary Heather, shares screenshots to social media, which then makes Virginia a pariah at school. Yes.
The dangers of being on the periphery of the popular group.
Indeed.
It is a treacherous place to be.
In middle school, when you think about going back in time, I don't think there are any grown-ups who would ever choose middle school as a time they would like to repeat.
I absolutely would not. No.
It's so hard.
And I so appreciated the realism of that, of first the setup, but also how realistically it's bringing social media into this as well.
Yes. And the basic theme, I think, is perennial. It's going to resonate, even if middle school is in your distant past. You remember what it was like so vividly. It's such a painful dynamic where you're acutely aware and self-conscious. And whether you're actively trying to be popular or not, you're aware of who is popular and why. And so what happens with Virginia is that she has a crush on this boy named Grayson, who had been super popular himself, but he left the football team. And so he's dropped dramatically in social standing. But Mary Heather figures out that Virginia has a crush and starts teasing her. And Virginia could say, well, I like Grayson, whether he plays football or, she could do that, take the high road, but she doesn't.
Oh, who
She's,
would? I mean, seriously. I
I
mean, at
know.
that age, we all wish we could, but
It's exactly what, teachers and grown-ups are always telling you should do, but she doesn't. And she says, mean things about him. And then there's this app called Scroller. And again, like all of this kind of thing used to happen even before smartphones, but it's so much worse now
right.
because the screenshots get shared. And of course, Mary Heather leaves out the context. Like we're all saying mean, gossipy things. She only posts Virginia's comments. And so everybody at school finds out. Grayson is crushed. Virginia becomes, she's ostracized. So she texts her text door neighbor, which is the person who has your same phone number, but off by one digit. And they start this anonymous back and forth correspondence. Her text door neighbor is very upset because people at school are saying mean things about him, and so Virginia's upset. So the thing is, readers, of course, figure out ahead of time who they are, right? But that's part of the fun. It's not one of those books where it's like, spoiler, oh no. It's like you want to see how do they figure out one another's identities. And so that really carries the story, which is just beautifully characterized. Virginia, you just think, oh, don't do that. She's not always likable, but that's okay. That's human.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Eevin Hartsough, from the pieces that I've listened to, really is so good. And I'd love to have you talk about her because I was just taken by the way she really shifted so easily among the book's cast of characters.
Yes, because that can be tricky when you have, I wouldn't say it's a huge cast, but just distinguishing the different voices.
Right, because they're all middle school kids, especially the
Yes.
girls.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that's so hard, I think, with middle school, you can't sound too childlike and you can't sound too adult. And Hartsough just nails it. It's not, sometimes when adults are doing children's voices, they can sound a little too young, too cutesy, or the opposite.
Right.
And you don't want to sound middle-aged. You don't want to sound 9. So it's that tough in between. She does it really well, really expressive, but not overly dramatic because the story is dramatic enough. You don't need to make it go too far. And you really feel like, and this is what I thought Hartsough did so well, is that Virginia, like I said, she's sometimes just not nice. And yet you feel like this is your kind of BFF confiding in you and revealing like the ugly parts. And, you just, it makes it easier to empathize with Virginia, even when you don't condone her choices.
Right. I completely agree. It was more of a, oh, Virginia.
Yes.
I felt like I was overhearing conversations among friends because the narration felt so natural to me.
Yes. Yeah, you do. It's really authentic dialogue. It doesn't have so much, slang that it's going to feel dated really soon. There's very good use of technology where, again, technology changes so quickly. But I think this type of platform is going to be around. This book won't, again, feel dated quickly.
Right. And I really think it opens the door for lots of conversations between adults and children.
Yes, because, a lot of kids, you get lectures from your parents and, you may not, you tune them out or, you're defensive of the friend who your parents think is a bad influence. But when you're talking about fictional characters, it takes that dynamic away. you can talk about them and you can kind of subtly, like so much, through story as you absorb morals, values, and can really help guide you to make better decisions without, the lecturing piece.
Exactly. Well, why don't we hear a little bit?
So this is a scene at home, and it gives a sense of how Virginia is feeling. Like she doesn't really have a safe place. Like home doesn't feel completely safe,
Yeah.
and neither does her friendship group. She's a girl who's struggling with belonging.
This is Confessions from the Group Chat. It's by Jodi Meadows, and it's read by Eevin Hartsough.
You look tense. Did Kat say something mean today? Pretty sure my mom was psychic. She's just being herself. She can't help it. Why do you think she can't help it? Low impulse control? I don't know. I shrugged, accidentally splashing dishwater. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just have to grit my teeth and deal with it. And somehow make her forget my crush on the boy who'd single-handedly caused our team to lose every game this year, because he quit the game. That sounded like a team problem, not a Grayson problem, but who was I to argue with popular opinion? Mom looked at me sideways. All right, it's your choice to keep her. She's my friend. Why was that so hard to understand? Mom didn't say what I knew she was thinking, but she was thinking it really loudly. She didn't think Kat was a good friend, but she was wrong.
Oh, I love that. She was thinking it loudly. Have we not all had moments with our parents when they were thinking very loudly and we knew what they were thinking? And that friend that mom didn't want you to have, which I have to confess in most cases was me. But, oh, Lord, we've all been there, too.
Indeed.
I just so enjoyed her narration and the way she captures the cadences of conversation in this book.
Yeah, it's really, really well done. I was so happy to listen to that audio adaptation.
And tell us about the final book.
Yes, so our final book is by the former British Children's Laureate, Joseph Coelho, who has won the Carnegie Medal, which is, like our Newbery Caldecott, but the British version. So excited to see he had a new book out. And Relic Hamilton, Genie Hunter is about a 12-year-old Black British boy in London, and he lives with his grandfather above the family shop called Anansi Antiques. It's in Soho. And he's called Relic, because of the family's love of antiquities. But one day, he's down in the basement polishing items. He accidentally releases a genie from a lamp, reigniting an ancient conflict, landing his grandfather in a coma, and forcing him to travel through time to try to undo all the damage.
What a premise. And we should also say it's narrated by Joseph Coelho, who is fabulous and seems to have so much fun narrating this book.
Very much so. And I think it's such a rare talent to be a gifted author and a gifted narrator. So I was blown away.
That is so true. I loved this book. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I kind of picked it because the title was so strange. So it's the first one I listened to out of the three. And I was captivated from the beginning.
It really, you get sucked in, and it's so kid friendly in that way. Fast pace, relatively short chapters. It opens with a poem, and then there's the prose, which is also fun, this mix of formats. And it's a trilogy opener because...
Which made me so happy.
Yes, there'll be more time with Relic, and kids love series. A lot of kids will say, I want a series. Sometimes they'll reject the standalone book. And so this is perfect.
I was just going to say, and I think the fact that it's in the first person also makes it so captivating so quickly.
Yes, very immediate. You really feel like you're there. And Relic's time travels. I love how, he goes to places like London Bridge in the 17th century. And he's thrilled because he and Granddad go mudlarking, which, if kids don't know that, it's wading into the mud and looking for little treasures. And in the Victorian days, it was actually an occupation. People would find things in the Thames that were in the mud and sell them. But now it's, highly regulated because there are antiquities there. But he and Granddad would go there, and then he's like, wait, this is the place near my home. And I think kids can connect to that, going, wait a minute, my neighborhood, what was it like centuries ago? So it brings this kind of wonder of the fantastical elements, but also the wonder of every day, of history and where you live.
Yes, I completely agree, because it has magic, it has history, it has time travel, it has world building, it has endearing characters. And I, for one, never knew about the problematics of genies.
Yes.
That was a learning for me.
It's fascinating. And it's all woven together so skillfully. You never feel like, okay, now's the info dump. It's all just part of the storytelling. And another thing with the appealing protagonist is Relic. He's a bit of an underdog. He's bullied at school. He's not someone who can see himself in this role of, saving Granddad, saving the world, hunting down rogue genies, and as we know from Percy Jackson, kids really, really connect to that type of character.
Well, why don't we hear a little bit and hear Coelho's narration? Then I'll talk more about it, because it's just wonderful. So set this up for us.
So this is a scene after he's polished the lamp, released the genie, and chaos has ensued. And it opens with a poem.
All right. This is Relic Hamilton, Genie Hunter. It's written and read by Joseph Coelho.
Flying feels like dreaming. Unreal, but somehow more real than anything. For a moment, I'm soaring above the clouds, I'm winged and taloned, I'm feathered and limitless. Then I wake up. I must have passed out. I'm no longer in the basement, no longer in Anansi Antiques. I'm in the sky. I'm lying down, and there is a small round window to my right, and I can see London below, like we're hovering above the oxbow of the Thames, curling like a muddy snake. We learnt about those in geography last term. Study points for me. An old man is peering down at me with deep brown eyes behind a pair of round glasses. A little white afro crown framing his bald head. Next to him is a woman with a mass of red hair and tattoos of spiders and other animals climbing up her arms. She has a piercing in her nose and several in her ears. She is holding a beeping device over me.
It is such a marvelous description of flying.
Yes.
And I just love the sense of fun that just flows through this book, both in the writing and the narration.
It is. It's a rollicking adventure. It's a kind of book where you don't want to stop. You're just like, one more chapter, what happens next?
Exactly. It's just rip-roaring.
Exactly. And pirates. I mean, who doesn't love a story with pirates? And Coelho does all the voices so well. Different accents, different ages, and the pirate voices are just so perfect.
I agree, because I think he gives each character a distinct presence, but at the same time, he keeps Relic's voice very much at the center of the story.
Very much so, yes.
It's a great book. I recommend it. I recommend all three so highly, but this I had so much fun with.
And this one, I think, has a built-in audience. I was thinking all the fans of Rick Riordan and Kwame Mbalia and J.C. Cervantes, Coelho fits right in with those. And this book in particular, reluctant readers and bookworms alike will find it so accessible and engaging.
And I think parents will very much enjoy listening to this with their children.
Yes.
Great week, Laura.
Thank you.
You're
Thanks
welcome. And thank you. This has been such a pleasure, and I really hope you'll come back.
I hope so too. I'm already making my list of more books I'd love to recommend.
Excellent. That was Laura Simeon. She's a young readers editor at Kirkus Reviews. And this is Behind the Mic. Behind the Mic is sponsored by Thomas Nelson Fiction. They're publisher of When Justice Comes. It's the final book in USA Today's best-selling romantic suspense author Colin Coble's Tupelo Grove series. It's narrated by Karen Peaks, available everywhere audiobooks are sold. Behind the Mic drops on Thursdays, and if you follow us, we'll simply appear in your feed. And while you're at it, follow Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. Fully Booked is the perfect podcast for book lovers. Every Tuesday, host Megan Labrise brings you author interviews, industry insights, and recommendations from the bestseller list. Find your next great book on Fully Booked by Kirkus Reviews. You can follow Fully Booked and Behind the Mic on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, or wherever you get your podcasts. And then stop by kirkusreviews.com to check out reviews for both print and audiobooks. Behind the Mic is produced by Jessica Lockhart. Michelle Cobb, Stephen Cummings, Leslie Fine, Alan Minskoff, Alex Ritchie, Laura Rossi, and Kendra Winchester are our contributors. Jennifer Dell is our editor, with assistance from Alicia Langerman. Tom Beer is the executive producer. The music is William Ross Chernoff's Nomads 4-Way. And I'm your host, Jo Reed. Good listening.